There is a specific kind of silence that changes everything in a relationship with an avoidant woman, and it is not the silence she creates when she pulls away. It is the silence you create when you finally stop chasing her. Most people assume that when they stop reaching out, the avoidant woman feels relief, more space, more room to breathe. What actually happens inside her is almost the opposite, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why that reversal happens, and why it catches her more off guard than it catches you. I know this pattern because I watched it unfold from both directions, the side doing the reaching and the side who finally stopped. Once you understand what silence actually does to an avoidant nervous system, you stop needing to guess whether staying quiet is working. Here is what almost nobody explains clearly enough about this dynamic. For most of the relationship, an avoidant woman experiences your pursuit as pressure, even when it does not feel like pressure to you. Every message, every check-in, every attempt to get closer registers somewhere in her system as a demand she has to manage. She does not always consciously label it that way, but her nervous system treats consistent pursuit the same way it treats any consistent demand, something to regulate, something to create distance from. So, for a long time, your effort is actually reinforcing the very avoidance you're trying to overcome. Then you stop, and something unexpected happens. The moment you're reaching out disappears. The predictable structure she has been relying on disappears with it. She no longer has to manage incoming closeness, because there is none coming in. At first, this feels like exactly what she wanted: space, quiet, no pressure to respond to. But underneath that immediate relief, a second process begins, one she rarely sees coming, because the entire relationship until that point trained her to expect that you would always be the one closing the distance. Picture how this actually plays out. For months, maybe longer, she got used to being the one who could set the pace. You texted first. You suggested plans. You asked how she was doing when she went quiet for a few days. She did not have to reach for you, because you were already reaching for her. Her attachment system built its entire sense of safety around that predictability, even though the predictability itself was one-sided. Then one day, without announcement, the text stopped, the check-in stopped, the plan stopped being suggested, and she notices not immediately, but within days, that the structure she unconsciously depended on is no longer there. This is where panic begins to build, though it rarely looks like panic from the outside. It looks like scrolling through old messages. It looks like opening your social media more often than she used to. It looks like a strange restlessness she cannot fully explain to herself, a feeling that something is missing even though nothing dramatic has happened. She tells herself she is fine, that this is what she wanted: more space, less pressure, but her body is registering something her mind has not caught up to yet, the absence of a safety net she never admitted she was relying on. Here is what most people misread about this moment, in one of two directions. Some assume that once she notices your silence, she will immediately reach out, apologize, come running back with clarity about what she wants. Others assume the opposite, that her lack of immediate response means the silence is not working at all, that she genuinely does not care and never did. Neither read is accurate, because the internal process happening inside her does not move on a timeline either of you can predict from the outside. What actually happens is slower and less visible. The panic she feels is rarely about missing you specifically, at least not at first. It is about the disruption of a pattern her nervous system had quietly come to expect. Avoidant attachment does not mean an absence of attachment. It means attachment expressed through control and distance instead of open pursuit. When the one variable she could always predict, your continued effort, disappears, her system registers it as instability, even if she cannot name it that clearly to herself. This is the part that explains why silence works differently than most people expect. It is not that silence makes her suddenly desire you more. It is that silence removes a mechanism she was using to manage her own anxiety about closeness. Without your pursuit to regulate against, she is left alone with her own attachment system, and for many avoidant women, that is an uncomfortable place to sit, because it forces a kind of self-confrontation a relationship never previously required. Some avoidant women respond to this discomfort by reaching out, testing whether you are actually gone or simply quieter than usual. A message that seems random, unrelated to anything, sent late at night. A like on an old photo. a mutual friend mentioning your name, and her asking a question that seems casual but is not. These are not always conscious strategies. Often they are her system attempting to reestablish the predictability that disappeared when you stopped reaching out first. Others do not reach out at all, at least not visibly. Their panic stays entirely internal, managed through distraction, through staying busy, through convincing themselves the discomfort they feel is unrelated to you. This does not mean the internal process is not happening. It simply means it is happening somewhere you cannot see it, which is often harder for the person waiting on the other end to accept, because silence with no visible reaction can feel indistinguishable from indifference. Here is a distinction that actually matters, and it is rarely explained plainly enough. There is a difference between an avoidant woman feeling temporary discomfort at the loss of a predictable pattern and an avoidant woman experiencing something that leads to real change. The first is common and does not require any growth on her part, simply an adjustment period before she either reaches out or settles into a new equilibrium without you. The second requires her to actually sit with the discomfort long enough to understand what it is telling her about her own patterns, rather than simply waiting for it to pass or finding a way to distract herself from it. Telling these two apart matters, because it changes what her eventual reaction, if there is one, is actually worth. A woman who reaches back out because she genuinely examined what she lost is different from a woman who reaches back out simply because the silence became uncomfortable and she wanted the discomfort to stop. The first indicates something real shifted. The second often indicates nothing more than a temporary itch that will return to old patterns the moment closeness starts to feel routine again. Which brings up the real question worth asking here, not whether she notices your silence. Because in most cases, she does, but what she chooses to do with that noticing once it arrives. Because her panic on its own proves very little. It is simply a nervous system reacting to a disrupted pattern. What she does after that reaction, whether it becomes an opening for real reflection or simply another feeling she manages and moves past, is the part that actually determines whether anything changes between you. Here is what matters most if you are the one who finally stopped reaching out. Her eventual reaction is not something you can control, and it was never meant to be the goal. The goal of stepping back is not to manufacture panic in someone else. It is to stop organizing your own emotional life around a pattern that only worked when you were the one holding it together. Whatever she does with the space you created belongs entirely to her. There are two honest paths from here, and neither one requires a reaction to arrive on any particular timeline. The first path is continuing to build a life that does not depend on her noticing your absence at all, treating the silence as something you created for your own peace, not as a strategy waiting for a specific response. The second path is staying open to whatever she brings back, if she brings anything back, while refusing to return to the version of yourself who reached out first every single time simply because the silence felt uncertain. Because the goal was never to make her panic. The goal was to stop being the only person holding the relationship together, so that whatever she does next tells you something true about her, instead of something you had to manufacture out of your own persistence.